Leila Amineddoleh is a partner and the chair of the art law group at Tata Krinsky and Drogan. She serves as lead counsel in matters involving sales of multi-million-dollar artworks and the recovery of stolen art. That sounds exciting. Thanks so much for being with me, Leila. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being with me. Let's get into this. You've said before that fewer than 10% of stolen artworks are ever recovered. Why is that recovery rate so low, especially with today's internet, international corporations, tracking technology? What's going on?
Well, the problem with art is that once it's stolen, thieves do not advertise it, and it's harder to track art. Unlike with automobiles, there aren't VIN numbers on artworks, and it's movable. So it's movable, it's easy to hide, and thieves will sometimes hide art, conceal stolen art for years or decades before it reappears. And after time has passed, it might be more difficult to actually track down and recover stolen art.
Well, speaking about that, these thieves took gems and jewelry, items that can be melted down or recut. Does that make them easier to sell? And what kind of black market channels would they be looking to use?
Oh, the problems with the pieces that were stolen from the Louvre is that they're really easy to take apart. You dismantle the objects and break them down to the raw materials, which obviously have great value, like diamonds, sapphires, and emeralds. So it's easy to put them on the black market where you could find unscrupulous dealers and buyers that will simply recut these gems, put them in different settings, and conceal them. No one needs to know that they came from a royal tiara or other royal jewelry piece.
There is a long history of looted or stolen artifacts ending up in private collections, sometimes even decades later they're being found. Given the global spotlight that is on this case, how likely is it that any of these jewels could quietly resurface in a legitimate art market years from now?
They can never actually reappear on the legitimate market in their current state or in their complete state as royal jewels. But if they are taken apart, then they could easily be hidden. And we've seen this for many decades. When you think about periods of time where there's been massive looting, for example, during World War II, whereas fine art might be recovered because it's recognizable, jewelry or furniture or porcelain, these types of objects are much easier to hide, much easier to trade on the black market, and may never reappear because they can be changed, disguised, and just altered in the way they appear. So unfortunately, once the objects like these go on a black market where they can be changed, it's likely that we'll never see them again. Although I hear from the news that there are some suspects that are in custody. So hopefully there will be information that will reveal where these objects are hidden.
Yes, and some people are still on the run, so we will see what happens with that. What does this incident tell us about how vulnerable major cultural institutions still are? Do museums need to rethink how they protect their treasures and their care?
Unfortunately, a lot of institutions are vulnerable to theft, and I think it's just because of practical reasons that it's really expensive and really difficult to secure these institutions. Not only do you have to think about security, but you have to think about storage of objects, visitors, the safety of objects in terms of temperature and humidity and how to store objects. And there are limited funds for cultural objects at institutions around the world. And when I think about a museum like the Louvre, which is one of the largest museums in the world with one of the largest collections, there's so many challenges. We just think about the size of that museum. To secure every window and every door and every object is a tremendous task that's incredibly expensive and incredibly difficult. And unfortunately, it's not just the large museums that are vulnerable to thefts, but smaller institutions, private collections. One of the problems with securing art is that oftentimes it's not art that's on display that's stolen, but rather art that's in storage or art that's being shipped and during transport from one museum to another, or transport to a storage facility, that's when objects go missing. So art, unfortunately, is vulnerable. And now we're seeing the result. Unfortunately, in this case, it's really spectacular with objects valued in over $100 million.
Oh, yes. And we will see what happens next. But for now, Leila Amineddoleh, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.